There are many reasons why we love CD Projekt Red. They made many people's favourite game of all time, The Witcher 3. They have pretty fair monetization and DLC practices, they leave greed to others. Also, their honesty and all-round pro-consumer outlook. Look after the players and the players will look after you. Well, I would like to add something else to the list of reasons why we love CD Projekt, and that is that their CEO is showing all other CEOs in the industry exactly how it's done. Recently, CD Projekt CEO Adam Kaczynski spoke during an investors conference call about a revolutionary new idea of his, that publishing, quote, extraordinary games is how you make money. Well, who'd have guessed? The investors conference call is the way in which big companies like CD Projekt communicate with their investors, reassure their concerns and highlight the company's successes. Usually during these calls you can learn a lot about a company. This is usually the people at the top of the corporate ladder speaking, after all, the ones who call all the shots. So there may be many clues as to what a company's core values are, the direction in which they are headed, and very importantly, how they see themselves making money in the future. Which in an industry rife with dubious practices such as yearly cash grabs, asset flips, broken games, loot boxes, content locked behind microtransaction paywalls, etc., how a company plans to make money from making games is a primary concern for many fans.
Speaking on the topic of the success of Red Dead Redemption 2 this year, Kaczynski said, "We strive to publish games which are as refined as Red Dead Redemption 2 and recent Rockstar releases in general. Rave reviews, excellent sales. What does that teach us? Well, it teaches us that we need to publish extraordinary games, and that's exactly what we are planning. There's only so much time one can devote to video games, and while the gaming community is growing, time cannot be stretched. There is, well, maybe not a sure fit, but a fair deal of good games out there, and playing them consumes a lot of time, so it pays to be among the best. That's how you get a nice fat slice of the cake, business-wise."
Making extraordinary games is the way that you make a bigger slice of the cake, and it pays to be among the best. So making not just great games, but among the best games, and that's how he sees, and that's how he's explaining how he's going to make money to the investors, by making a great game. He's not saying I'm looking for a recurring consumer spending. I'm not looking for ways to take money off in like little chunks. I'm not chopping my game up into little bits and selling little chunks of it separately. I'm just going to make a great fucking game. How about that?
Who knew? This quote from Kaczynski wasn't part of his scheduled presentation, it was part of the response he gave to a question he was asked by an investor during the call. The investor asked, "With The Witcher 3, the bugs took around 3 months to patch out after release, from what I can remember, and the prevailing view seems to be that Red Dead Redemption 2 was good enough on the day of release to merit that 97 out of 100 score. Do you expect to be able to release Cyberpunk in a good enough state to score at least 95 points, or do you prioritize your release schedule?" To which Kaczynski's first reply was, "A fairly provocative question, isn't it?"
It's interesting to note that this is an investor here that's a provocateur.
Yeah.
And it's not just YouTubers apparently. Isn't that right, Mr. Jason Schreier?
Called
Zing.
out, son. Kaczynski continued, "Without a doubt, quality is of paramount importance. We're happy to see that excellent games continue to sell well."
And I know what you're thinking, this isn't some half-assed dig at the quality of Fallout 76 at launch, because the launch of that happened on the same day of this conference call. So he could never have known how well received that game would have been at the time, because that was released, like I said, on the same day. Well, that's if you call it a release, in much in the same way as a dog releasing his guts and his arse onto your new carpet. That's what kind of release that was.
Releasing his gut, that's a big bastard coming out that time.
Earlier during the call, Kaczynski was explaining to investors how well received the new Cyberpunk gameplay and trailers were earlier this year. At this early stage of the campaign, the most important question from our perspective was whether Cyberpunk, the new IP we're introducing to the market, will take hold, whether it will be as well received as we would expect, at least in terms of attracting gamer interest. These viewership figures, here is referencing the YouTube views on the trailer and the 45-minute gameplay, answer our initial questions in the positive. Gamers are indeed interested in Cyberpunk and are eagerly awaiting its release. So Kaczynski's directly using the views on the YouTube trailer and the gameplay from Cyberpunk earlier this year to illustrate to the investors how well anticipated this game is. He's using the community and how well that his game and his company is viewed in the community as evidence that it's going to do well in future, and it shows that his relationship with his consumers holds value to him. That's literally what he's saying here, and that is completely contrary to what you might expect from the likes of EA or Activision or anyone else who uses these shitty monetization methods and all these dubious practices in the industry, and they don't care about the consumers. They literally don't. They literally try and take the piss as much as possible, and then when the community gets upset, they say, oh yeah, we'll be looking into fixing you, and then eventually they might or might not fix the problems with the game or whatever. And Kaczynski isn't like that, because part of his presentation, this is part of his pitch to investors. My community holds all this value to me, so this is why you should invest in this. And I think that's awesome. So I guess what all this illustrates is that Kaczynski and CD Projekt Red, like to the bone, to the core of this company, they know how to operate. They know how to keep the investors and the gamers happy. You can't just fleece gamers no end in order to make money, because that's not how it goes. This is a two-way relationship, treading that fine line between investors and gamers whose priorities are somewhat conflicted a lot of the time between making money and making good games. He's treading the right path in between the two, and hats off to him. He's showing everybody else how it's done. Kaczynski, MVP.